Welcome back in, everybody. My name is Mitch, and welcome back to another YouTube video on Jamie's channel. And before we begin, before we get into the football, the fantasy, whatever other rubbish and nonsense I can spew up for 20 to 30 odd minutes, I just want to give a massive congratulations to the man himself, Jamie, on his engagement with his partner. Obviously, in yesterday's video, he announced that he got engaged with his partner, and that's just so awesome to hear. Obviously, I'm really good friends with Jamie, and over the last 2 years, we've gotten pretty close and as mates, and yeah, just sending lots of love to him. It's really awesome to hear, and I'm glad she said yes. How embarrassing for him if she would have said no. So. I'm not expecting an invitation to the wedding, but if he sends me one, I will attend. That was actually a joke, just for when he watches this back. Yeah, I'm joking. But first minor buy round out of the way. The major buy round, round 12 last week, or the few weeks ago now, it went exactly as it was supposed to. 13 people on the field. The footy's a bit boring. Fantasy's a bit boring because you can only field 13. And the first minor buy round went exactly the same, to be honest. Again, I don't like the change. I wish we could still field 17. Obviously, the skill gap and all that sort of stuff, it makes the game a lot more easier. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. And by no means do I think that's a bad thing. I just think my preference is to, if the change didn't happen, because the round went exactly how it was supposed to for my end. I actually didn't trade, and I'll touch on that pretty soon. And my whole round was just about looping and trying to manipulate the game into getting the best score that I could possibly get. It worked quite well with KPP, but obviously you see I took Payne Haas's 45 instead of Jazz's 51. And to be honest, it was kind of just because they played in the same game. It was kind of hard to loop, and there was a chance that I took both of their scores instead of Joe Tarpanay through Hot Boy from the Dogs. So I had Haas in above Tavanga just because it's Payne Haas. There was a chance he went nuclear and he didn't. So that is what it is. I ended up scoring an 813, which I'm actually really happy with. I think with all the updates, obviously this morning, obviously this video is being recorded on a Monday night. So Monday morning and Monday, afternoon and all that sort of stuff, there was some funny updates. So, Kalama who was a really popular bringing for everybody, he updated like 7 or 8 points or whatever. So Payne has got a couple of tackle breaks. Tarpanay got an extra 3 points. So these are all pretty highly owned guys, especially Keon Koloamatangi now. He's a lot less, of a focal point for me. It was pretty cool to own a few weeks ago when I got the 80, and now I got the 80, and everybody has the 80, so it's a little bit less irrelevant for me. But 813, I'm absolutely thrilled with. I think the average for the round was 760, 770 off the top of my head. So I gained about 1,000 ranks. Again, 2,300 is probably the lowest I've been for a while, actually, which is sad for my, ego and my point of view and perspective. But I'm on the climb, and like I said earlier, I didn't end up trading. Oh, this is what I've cooked up right now. We'll get into that soon. I'm going to have a bit of a play around, and I didn't end up trading in round 13, and there is a story behind that. And I will get to that very, very soon. You know what? Let's get to it now because it actually infuriated me. So the entire week, I had Tom Jenkins. I recorded the video last week. I was like, oh, Ewan Aitken, Jaden Campbell, which way do I go? And I decided, you know what? Jaden Campbell, I'm gonna bring him in. Jenkins to Campbell, elite gun. I didn't really need convincing. I wasn't really asking to be convinced. I was just like, okay, I was trying to do a little bit of planning in my head, talking some rubbish out loud, and what made sense for me. And just getting Campbell in was the right move. And then he got moved to fullback against Melbourne. And I said, oop, no, I'm going to reverse that trade. I don't want anything to do with Campbell. Obviously the conditions as well weren't good. Like I didn't know that heading into the game, but it was torrential rain, which obviously we didn't know. But Campbell playing fullback, I think his like average is like high 40s. He's like a 40s guy or something, mid 40s at fullback. And I was like, okay, this could be a good chance for him to lose a bit of cash. Maybe Jenkins could score a try, bag a 40, make a little bit more cash. JC could lose some cash, and I could just pull the trigger next week. And then Campbell comes out and gets a nothing try, an easiest try being a fullback. That's what fullbacks do. And then after half time, had like two try assists, had a play where he broke four tackles and then offloaded the ball. Like, yeah, it was very frustrating. And he ended up just scoring a mid 60s anyway, and he didn't really lose any cash. Obviously, he lost about 7K or whatever, but I was hoping for, a 40 and he could lose 30 to 40K, but that's fine. So I had that trade locked in all week. And then once he got ruled out, or ruled to fullback, sorry, I just said, no, you know what, I'm going to hold that trade. And then I had some thought process on obviously Haas scored 43, and then I had Jenkins sitting here. I could have moved Kolomatangi up, and I thought, do I just get you an Aitken? And I thought, oh, I'm the nard. I was pretty keen at the start of the week. And then obviously we saw Toby Couchman absolutely carve up. And I was not expecting that. Matty Thompson and Jamie still own. They played him and yeah, rocket like 70 points or something. Luckily, he still lost about 10K and he is prime for the pickup, this week. And we will get into that very soon. I'm pretty confident I'm going to be picking him up 100%. It's pretty hard to be that confident on a Monday night before, anything's even happened. I haven't even eaten dinner yet, let alone making my trades for Thursday night. But yeah, 813. I'm really, really happy with that score. I had a look at the top rankings and it's pretty high. It's a really good rank and I'm on the come up. And I am stoked that we can start to field 17 this week again, going back to fielding a full team. And I've had a quick little play. Obviously I had work all day and lockout's been only up for a little bit. So I've had a quick little play of what I can do and who I want to trade out and all that sort of stuff. And if we look back at the scores, obviously Jenkins, he's done his job. I've tried this. I've meant to sell him for a few weeks now. I truly have, and he's gotten all the way up to 460K. I have no purpose for him anymore. His break evens, if it's high, Casey McLean doesn't know how to pass the ball. Apparently he can kick the ball to him, but he can't pass the ball. So yeah, he's done his dash. I'm selling him. We've got Kitione Katonga, who I've been also just trying so hard to sell for like a month. I know he's scored those 350s in a row, but I hate watching him. I hate owning him, even with those good scores. And the HIA, I was pretty frustrated about. The low score, I'm frustrated about. But what I'm happy with is the fact that I can finally trade him. I'm definitely trading him, get in the bin, see you later. And then we have the interesting situation of Hugo Savala, who obviously news has come out today. I saw something that Sam Walker is potentially playing New South Wales Cup this week, going to try and get a game in. And I'm looking at Savala, him and Tedesco on the bye. I've only got two Roosters, but we have a look at which we will soon, how my squad is. And I think Savala may have done his dash for my team. I think Sam Walker will be playing NRL next week. Again, I don't really have any basis, or I don't have any. I'm not an inside man. I'm not even a Roosters fan. The Roosters even have fans. Like, I don't even think so. So I'm not sure if he will play next week. Now, I could just wait and just, suss everything out, see what happens. Does he play? I think when Sam Walker's back, personally, that Sandon will be the 5'8". Whether or not Hugo is the bench utility or whether or not Hugo is out of the side. If he's not playing halfback, he's not really relevant in fantasy and to us, let alone the Roosters in real life football, but just more so to us in fantasy. And I'm looking at his price. He's got a pretty low break even, so you could still wait. And that's probably what I suggest. A lot of people will trade, a lot of people will hold. It depends, what your team makeup is. And because it's back to 17 this week, people are going to be fielding some pretty gun squads, like some absolute stacked sides with the team value being so high. So I think I'll be trading those three, and I've got some options. And then we have the everlasting looming Jamal Fogerty, who was a very late out in round 12. Luckily for me, I had Hugo to just come in and play. A lot of people were in that same situation, fortunately, that whoever had Fogerty, chances are you had Cleary or a Sharp, but, Cleary probably. And then when Fogerty was ruled out, Hugo was just in. A lot of people had Ikatoa and Nico Hines, who were just naturally playing Savala anyway. So net positive, I think everybody probably just played Savala that in the rankings, so that's fine. But we've got the interesting situation of Fogerty, who I don't think he will play this week. I watched Ricky's presser quite closely before my brain started to play around with trades and money and all that sort of stuff. And he said that if he's fit to play, he will, but They won't rush him back. And the Raiders haven't had a bye yet, and it's a groin strain. So if he plays, does he goal kick? They've got KO Weeks there, who's a quite a good goal kicker. I'm not sure. Does he do less in-play kicking? Does Ethan Strange did a lot of kicking the other day against the Roosters, so does he do more? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see for TLT. Obviously, that's the joys of recording on a Monday night. You just all these questions and you don't have any answers, but I don't need the answers to have my brain ticker. I like to have fun and that's what I do. So we've got Fogerty, who is a pretty interesting situation. So looking at this week, like I said, we're back to 17 and I've had a little play. Obviously, these three I want to trade and thankfully I can trade. They're all cash cows. They're all serving a purpose and they've all served their purpose. Obviously, Savala, he's got merit to hold. Katonga also has merit to hold. You don't have to sell him, even though I want to. He's been, like I said, I've been wanting to trade him for ages. And looking at the guys I'm bringing in, so Couchman, watching him play was really, really good. Obviously, I was death riding him because, Maddie and Jamie have him, and when players they own that I don't, um, I like to death ride them. Obviously, fantasy only, not IRL. I'm not a horrible person. Um, and Jaden Campbell kind of speaks for himself, right? The best winger fullback. He killed it on the weekend. It's going to be interesting if he's named at fullback again. Obviously, AJ Brimson copping the head knock. Jalen de Groot with a hamstring strain from memory. It's kind of sad that I just know all this off the top of my head. That's my whole life's football and fantasy. It's sad, isn't it? But yeah, if Campbell's named at fullback, I might just pull the plug and bring him in anyway and just lock the trade in instead of just waiting. We've seen he can score well at fullback, and he's really a big focal point in their attack at halfback or fullback, and he was still doing kicking in play anyway. He was doing the lateral where he was playing fullback and then coming up for some kicks. And Kieran Foran didn't kick at all. So it was pretty much him and Tom Weaver sharing the kicking duties. And Tom Weaver, if he can play halfback, I can play halfback. He is a horrible player. Um, and then to facilitate all this, obviously, I had about 380K in the bank. So I've had all this money in the bank for like 4 weeks. I've been trying to spend it, saving trades. Like, who am I? Like, please. Is Latu Fainu, and all the reports are he should be named. He is their six. He's their halfback. Well, 5'8" with Jerome Luai. Now that Galvin's gone to a Bulldogs side. So if he's named, he's probably the cash down to facilitate these trades. I'm getting two elite guys in for three cash cows, more or less. And yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I have had a play around with Jamal Fogerty, and trading him out. Again, I'm not going to really put that on the video because then it's not like I'm suggesting that I always do silly things. As you can see from my team, I own Britton Nickera, I own Leo Thompson, who I traded. Like I like to have a couple of rogue picks. And I've kind of toyed around with the idea of trading Jamal Fogerty if he's out. And there is somebody that definitely isn't in this team that I haven't traded in or said out loud that I am pretty keen on, and I'm really excited to see what happens. And that is Matt Burton. So obviously at the price, 550K, 549K, he's very, very, very cheap. Now, obviously, when guys like him and Jerome Hughes and these other guys who are at these such low prices, Britton Nickera, things like this, they're at that price for a reason. But Burton he's different. He's not really scoring, any like tremendously bad that his break even's really high, that his price plummeted. But he had that MCL injury, and then he had I think there was 2 games there where he had HIAs and then come back on. I think at the price, he plays 15 and 18, and yeah, in a pretty tricky half spot, right, for my team anyway. I don't have a lot of guys, who can play half. If I'm trading out Savala, I've got King Togia, who I probably have to rely on next week, which is a bit grim, but we'll get into that later. That's a story for another time. Is Matt Burton. And at the price, I'm just thinking, okay, let's say Fogarty is out. Is there a route where I can trade Fogarty to Matt Burton and then maybe change my trades or change my thought process in regards to Latu Finu. And now he's coming off couple of bad hamstrings. I've listened to the Magic Sponge, which is the NRL Physio's podcast, and he's really talking about he's worried about Latu Finu just with the amount of hamstrings and the problems that he's had with his body. And I don't know, it's kind of scared me off a little bit just because I already have Hopoi, who I didn't buy as a cash out, and I'm not buying Latu Finu as a cash out. That's not really why, but I feel like I don't want to play Hopoi ever. Maybe in 15 or 18, if if he can jag a high 30s to 40, maybe there's a way I can take that score. But I just feel like Finu, I've already got King Togia as well. So in a week like this, where we're playing 17, having more than, two of these guys can be a little bit of a worry. I don't traditionally know what Finu scores or averages in the halves, probably like, low 30s. I don't have the stats or the analysis in front of me. That's not really the role I play. As you guys know, I kind of just talk some absolute rubbish, and somehow I've kept the gig. So yeah, there's a world where I change Matt Burton to like Fogerty to Matt Burton, and even if I don't do that, there's still a world where I just straight swap Katonga for Matty Burton, maybe instead of a JC, and look at getting JC next week. There's a lot of options, but I am pretty keen on Matt Burton. But as you can see, I have quite a strong 17. Again, also doing this, I don't have any center cover. I'm getting rid of Katonga, and I don't have any other centers, so I'm just playing not playing center roulette, but it would leave me a center short. Round 16, Manly are on the bye, so I'd need to bring in a center that plays uh 16 to get a scorer there, and then potentially maybe a center who just plays round 18. But if I was to do these trades, it would leave me with I've got a little buy planner spreadsheet there. You guys don't want to see that. That's all boring and numbers and stuff. But I would with the trades and the process that I have in place, I have a full squad next week. Again, maybe if you're counting up who I have here and what positions, maybe it's not adding up. But in my brain and the trades I'm going to make this week, potentially next week, what I'm doing, I have a full side. So I'm confident in that. And I have quite a strong side here. Obviously, Tedesco's out. I would be trading Savala. I'd be playing Jazz. I can probably loot, but this is quite comfortably my strongest side. Obviously, this is in regards to Fogarty playing and actually scoring. I'd be getting Couchman back, who's just an absolute jet. I'd finally have Campbell. So I have a pretty good core of players, right? Like you'd probably argue they're a pretty solid 18. Obviously, I've got a few duds, Britt Nickora, but I'm gonna die on this hill that he's gonna score big for me soon. His big is probably like a 50 with 2 tries, but that's happening maybe even this week. I think they play the Warriors, so I've got a good foundation. Everyone's doing their job, and I'm kind of really really set up. In my head, obviously, and with the processes I'm doing, I'm set up for the buys. I had a really good a major buy round. I kind of just obviously Fletcher Sharp kind of ruined my round 12, and I cannot believe I skipped out on Fletcher Sharp. You know what? Let's stop what we're doing. I'm sure you guys will love this. I mean, everyone watching is probably a Fletcher Sharp owner, but I'm not. And trust me, it was not fun. Let me just say, and I'm going to get a bit of a tangent here. It was not fun watching him score 98. And everyone was like, oh my God, how good is this? I said in the about 20, 30 minutes before the Dragons played Newcastle, I said in our group chat to Maddie and Jamie, they can attest to this. I said KPP is going to score a try and hit 70, and Fletcher Sharp is going to score 30 or 35. And I said, I'll cop that. Not only did KPP score a try, he went pretty close to 70, and Fletcher Sharp, 22 points. How good is that for my team? Don't get angry at me. I'm sure everybody's got him. I don't. That's kind of why I feel like I had a pretty good week last week, because I copped a low score in Katonga, but a lot of people probably would have took that score and then a Fletcher Sharp on top of it. So it swings and roundabouts. Obviously, I'm still losing because he scored 100 and I didn't have him for that. But yeah, that's just a moment of glory for my side in not owning him, and boy, did that make my weekend. Obviously, when everyone's got him, I've kind of just got to, I can take my losses when he scores well. I have to suck that up. But yeah, I was like I said, death riding him quite hard at fullback. And that kind of gets me into my next topic here of buy round options and probably sub-optimal options for the buy round. And there's one person in particular that I kind of wanted to talk about. Obviously, no stats, no analysis, just straight football and fantasy talk through and through. I don't have any numbers in front of me. Is Damien Cook at 603K. Now, obviously, if you were blessed with the best bald eagle himself, I cannot believe I picked Jazz up at like 306K. Let me even go fact check that real quick. When I picked him up, I picked him up a week early before everybody else. 329K. I remember he scored 38 with a 7 point down day. So he's already made me 200K plus and he's on his way to 600. But if you weren't blessed with him, uh, round 15 and 18 hooker is looking really, really tricky. It's tough. I haven't thought about it once because I'm not in the position, but I know a lot of people who don't own Jazz. Obviously, this number is quite high, but again, you want to buy him at 543K. I'm not sure. Gut feel, if I didn't own Jazz, I don't know. I probably wouldn't. I think he's playing really well. He's clearly a big minute priority since Jake Trbojevic has been out, but I feel like he's been a little bit lucky with Gerbo actually being out. And obviously, you make your own luck in rugby league, you make your own luck in fantasy. Fantasy is like 70% luck, 30% skill, maybe even a little bit more luck. You need luck to go your way. And we've definitely gotten lucky with Jazz Tavanga. Would I still buy? I don't know. I'm not an owner, but I would probably lean no. Again, I don't know if that's right or wrong. I probably wouldn't pay that much for him. I would probably pay up to go to Damien Cook. And I think this is me living in obviously I've been playing fantasy for like 6 or 7 years. I know what Damien Cook usually has been at South, and obviously we are getting a completely different Damien Cook. But I just look at the way he's playing. He's doing a minute split. He's playing like 50 minutes at hooker, and then in the last 2 or 3 weeks playing 20 to 25 at lock. I don't know. I just like what he's offering. I like that he's been on the field a lot more. And when Damien Cook's on the field, a little bit like Toby Couchman in a different sense, he just accumulates. He's an attacking player, especially when he's a hooker. He still likes to run for 80 to 100 meters. And at 600K after 270 odds, lower break even, I think he's a really good option. I've heard a lot of people talking about Chris Randall with the duel, and I think that's fine. I didn't realize how cheap he was, so this actually makes plenty of sense at 0.4%. It's actually insane. I thought he had like a five in front of his price. I was like, that's a bit, 420K. I like Chris Randall. Again, obviously Fafita potentially back, if he even plays for the Titans again. The coach is off him. So you'll have to watch that space. But I like Chris Randall. I know in a pretty tricky spot. And they're going to lose a lot of Origin players. So there's a chance he plays lock. There's a chance he plays back row. But again, he's one of these guys where he's cheap for a reason. That's that's as blanket as it is, right? He's at this price, which may look really nice, but how did he end up here? Again, you want to go through and have a look, do some, your own research, that boring stuff. I already do enough of it as it is for me and my players. So, but yeah, it's a pretty tricky spot hooker for 15 and 18. Obviously, the bald eagle, I'm stoked to own. But I think it's a really interesting point to bring up in, when do you want to jump on these guys? Someone like Randall at 420K in a tricky spot who covers, a good little portion, just know you'll have to trade them out. I'm fully expecting Jazz Tavanga to be a trade out round 19. Round 19 is a really, really tough round with Manly, Raiders, and Rabbitohs, and Jazz is definitely expendable out of the bunch. But again, like he's killing it right now. I'm really hoping to get him up to about 600 odd K, which he should do. And yeah, he's going to be able to be a really nice trade. Damien Cook is someone you could potentially hold all year. But Chris Randall, you'll definitely have to trade out again. So, is it worth using two trades when you bring in? Just know you've probably got to bring him back out. And our trades are getting pretty low. This is me using three, which I think I will be using three this week to really try to launch and set my team up. But there's a chance I might use a fourth, and I haven't talked about it on the video, and I won't talk about it on the video because it's probably a dumb idea, but I'm full of them, and that's how I like to play. So yeah, while a little bit earlier, while I was talking about me having 13 for next week is solely because I'm actually, that's with Jaden Campbell. So with Couchman, I obviously I had the big man himself, Hopboy, as like my third mid, but I kind of used him as a cash down to facilitate a lot of these big dogs that I'm bringing in now. But Couchman would comfortably sit in my mids, and Campbell, I would need a center or a wing fullback with the duel from Garrick. Um, so yeah, Campbell kind of helps me with that. Um, and yeah, I've got plans in place to make everything work. And then, like I said, uh, I'd need a center for around 16 when Garrick was out. So there's a bit of thought process of maybe getting like a Herbie. I think it just comes down to Fogerty. Fogerty doesn't play next week. He doesn't have any, but he had not had a bye yet, so he's going to miss 3 weeks. He misses this week. He'll miss 4. So yeah, if I depends what he does. If he's out and I want to be a bit crazy and trade him out, then I may do that. But I need a center for 16, which again I think early days. I'm not sure which way I'll go. Again, I'm hoping someone cheap comes up so I can just maybe grab a cheap center, but that's ages away, and you guys don't really care about that sort of stuff. And I think that might be a really good place to end the video. Obviously, I don't have much of a plan to come on and talk, but I don't have Maddie here as well to just keep talking and asking me questions and absolutely grilling me on my horrible ideas. But I think that's maybe where I'm going to end it. So, in saying that, thank you for watching. If you guys have any comments or questions, or want to absolutely talk some trash with me, make sure you leave your comments down in the comment section. It's the only video I'm pretty active on. I watch all the I consume so much fantasy content. I'm in group chats, discords. I listen to every podcast. I consume so much that yeah, it's taken over my whole life. So it's the only place I reply back to people and kind of interact with you guys. Always open to feedback on everything. I've been doing these videos for what 2, 3 months now, which is crazy how quick it's gone. Round 14 we're up to. More than pretty much halfway in the center, 27 rounds. Scary. We're running out of trades. I know I am, especially because I want to keep using them. But I'm excited for the football this week. Captain May, boring VC Keon Colom and Sunging probably. Um, yeah, that's where I'll end it, guys. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next week. Cheers, guys.